Hi everyone, time for another NFL team preview. We're staying in the NFC South and going to last year's maybe surprise team that they finished so well, the Carolina Panthers. Last season 7-9 under head coach Ron Rivera. They look to improve through a big upgrade on their defense, but we're going to start with the offense. Cam Newton is the quarterback, the former first overall pick. He needs to keep improving. He's done so the first 2 years. Can he do it for a third straight year? That's going to be the big difference between this team being a contender or a pretender. The running back situation, they've got that two-headed monster, D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart. Unfortunately, the second half of that, Jonathan Stewart is starting on the PUP. He'll miss the first 6 weeks of the season. So that means D'Angelo Williams will get a lot of carries, and that might be a good thing for him, that they'll use him up soon, and they'll have Jonathan Stewart at the second half of the year to spell him. Mike Tolbert, signed from the Chargers. He's going to focus more on fullback. Should be beneficial to their offense that he's not focused on getting carries. Wide receiver, where it's really a one-man show and then a bunch of other guys. You have Steve Smith at 34. He's had some good years, but can he match 1,100 yards again? Can he get that high? He's going to be getting a lot of passes because there aren't a lot of good options. Here are the guys competing for the second and third wide receiver spot. Brandon LaFell, good season out of LSU, dealt with some injuries. Ted Ginn Jr., an electric return man, definite upgrade there, but never taken advantage of his opportunities at wide receiver, being the former 9th overall pick. Armani Edwards, former Appalachian State quarterback, seems like a stretch and a horrible draft pick. Amazing he's still in the roster. Dominic Hickson, he's bounced around, the former Giant. David Geddes, shown some flashes in brief playing time, but also dealt with injuries. So you have to, who wins that job? I like LaFell, I like David Geddes, but I also like Ted Ginn Jr. to add something, maybe a deep threat to that team. But again, you don't have great options at wide receiver. They do have a good option at tight end though. Greg Olsen is sparkling and developing into his own player. He had over 800 yards last year. Big season. I expect him to do that. I think he can get to 1,000 yards. I think they're really going to make him a focal point of their passing game with Steve Smith. We go to the offensive line, where it's a weak offensive line, a very bad right side, and then you have the old reliable veteran Jordan Gross at left tackle, a mini Solati at left guard, 15-game starter last year, the 2012 second-round pick, and Ryan Khalil is one of the best centers, but he's coming off an injury-shortened season last year after they guaranteed a Super Bowl, which didn't come close to happening. Moving to the defense, where they spent their first 2 draft picks. First on Star Lotulelei, the 14th overall pick out of Utah. He was a dominating force. He almost single-handedly beat Utah. He was really disruptive. And then they drafted Kiwana Short out of Purdue. I don't think he'll start right away, but he will make a great combo with Star Lotulelei. That's a good combo, good building block for that defense moving forward. And then they have Dwan Edwards, who's bounced around from Baltimore to Buffalo to now Carolina. He had 6 sacks last year. He's never going to reach that again. That's a career high, but he is a good run stuffer. He'll be sharing snaps with Short. We move to the ends, where Greg Hardy had a breakout year. Once considered a first-round pick at Ole Miss following his second year, he dropped all the way to the 6th round to the Panthers, who picked him up. He had 11 sacks last year, and opposite him, they had an elite 4-3 D-end in Charles Johnson, who can get to the passer. Great pass rusher. We move now to the defense, where I'm going to go out and say it, the best linebacker in football is Luke Kuechly. After a career where he made like 500 tackles at Boston College, he had a phenomenal rookie season. I've heard guys compare him to Ray Lewis, which is a great comparison because they both have a nose for the football. They both are incredibly smart. They both see the game one step ahead of the guy beside them. And then we go to the outside, where Thomas Davis, career is basically a guy who's been resilient. He's come back from a couple torn ACLs. He's had 2 or 3 in his career, so you always want to cheer for him on. When healthy, he's a great player. He's led the NFL in tackles before, but then, of course, he's got a couple torn ACLs that derailed his career. Opposite him on the strong side will be John Beeson, who only made 5 starts the past 5 starts the past 2 seasons because of knee and Achilles problems. Hopefully he's healthy, because he was great in the middle a few years ago before all these injuries took over. You move to their secondary, where it is a really bad situation. They're hoping that they get to the passer so they don't give up a lot of passing yards, because Drayton Florence and Captain Munnerlyn are their starting corners, and those are very weak options at corner. You don't want them to be passing on you, because you're going to give up lots of yards. Both those guys should be third corners, not starters. We move to safety, where Charles Godfrey is their best player in the secondary at free safety. But then they've signed a player that I think could have a big year. He's going to be a fantasy stud, that's for sure, and that's Mike Mitchell. He's going to make a lot of tackles. He's a physical in the box safety, but his questions always are, how does he cover the opposing tight end? Can he do that? Well, he's going to get his test because he didn't get a lot of playing time behind Tyvon Branch in Oakland. Let's see what he can do in Carolina. We move to the special teams, where they have some of the worst kickers and punters. Graham Gano could be the worst kicker in the league. Brad Nortman is a below average punter. So I'm saying 6-10 this year for the Panthers. A step back for Ron Rivera. He could be fired after this season. There's a strong possibility. I'm not on the Panthers bandwagon. 6-10, and that's the team preview.